Hi everybody, and I'm a careers and work placement consultant here at Queen's Business School. In this short video, I'm going to show you how to build a CV from scratch using Microsoft Word, which is a really effective tool for creating clear professional layouts. I'm going to walk you through a few simple techniques that's going to help you to present your CV exactly how you want to, and make it easy to tailor it down the line. So let's get started. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to be using a downloadable version of Microsoft Word. You guys have got access to the downloadable version of Microsoft Word 2 through your student Microsoft 365 account. You can use the online version of Word for this, but you might find you get just a tad bit more functionality using the local version. So if you want to access that, first thing you need to do is log in, and you'll be confronted with Copilot. If you go to the left hand side and click on Home, and then in the top right hand corner you can see a button that says Install and More. Click it and click on Microsoft 365 Apps, and you'll then get a window that loads and it'll allow you to install Office, and obviously Microsoft Word will be within that. So that's what I'm using today. So I've gone ahead and opened up a blank document that I'm going to use for my CV. And I've just already made one or two tweaks. The first thing I've done is I've just extended my margin on the left hand side and on the right hand side just a little bit to give us a little bit more room. And I've done the same with the top margin and the bottom margin just to maximize the real estate on the page. Another thing that I'm going to do is I am going to come up to the styles ribbon and I'm going to click on no spacing. And that will mean that there's absolutely no formatting on our text that we don't know about, which means it will be easier to make changes down the line. For the purposes of this tutorial, I am going to be using information that I copy and paste onto this document just to make things flow a little bit easier, a little bit faster. So we're going to start with some contact information. So I've just copied and pasted on there, and I'm going to put this in the center. I'm going to take my name as the title of the document. I might put it in caps because I want it to be prominent. You don't have to do this, but that's what I'm going to do here. Let's make it bold, and let's maybe bring it up to 24. Aptos is an absolutely fine font. It's a sans serif font, so it looks clean, it looks contemporary, and it's really easy to read, super accessible. Looking at the contact information, we've kept it simple and we've kept it on one line. City, country, email address, we've used the Queen's one. Got our phone number on there. We're only going to use one phone number, the one you're most contactable on. And then I've left a little section here, connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you put this on your own CV, then you can just right click, add a link, and then put your own profile URL in there. And whoever's reading your CV will get easy access to your LinkedIn profile as well. Next up, let's consider a personal profile. Again, a well-crafted personal profile can really add to your CV. It's not a compulsory element, but you know, where they're done well, they can definitely enhance your overall presentation. So I'm just going to paste in one that I've already written. And as we can see, the start really focuses on academics. So a curious and analytical business student, Queen's University, Belfast, with a strong interest in marketing and storytelling. So it describes who we are in the academic sense, and it describes our interest. Develop organizational skills in a fast-paced solicitor's office and gain creative insight through a virtual internship with Sydney Romantics. So again, what we're doing here is we're just highlighting one or two skills that might be critical for the role we intend to apply for, and we're offering up our work experience at the solicitor's office and the virtual internship experience as proof points, just to give us a little bit more credibility. And also to signpost to the recruiter or the hiring manager that, you know, there are compelling experiences worth reading about further down in the CV. Finally, we're just finishing up by highlighting what we're looking for. We're looking for a 12-month marketing placement and why. Build on strengths in communication, branding, and data-driven decision making. It's also worth noting that all of the skills and qualities that I have put in here, they will all align with the job advertisement that I'm responding to. What we're trying to do is to demonstrate relevance. We're trying to give the reader a reason to read on through the CV. So we've got maybe 5 lines max, 3 sentences, and we've got a nice crafted personal profile. Don't really need to do anything else with this right now. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a new section. We're just going to call it education. And so this is going to be one of my main headers. So the way that I set this header up is how I will set every header up moving forward. Underneath that, we're going to start putting our education history in. And what we're going to do is start with a subheader. And a subheader is going to have slightly different formatting style from the main header. And then the main body text will have a slightly different formatting style from our subheader. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to Control V to paste. The minute's plain text. So the first thing that I think I will do is I'm going to make all of this bold. And then I could keep my date underneath, but I think for me, I'm going to pull it up and put it all on one line, just to keep things nice and compact as much as possible. So at the moment, this is all set to font size 12, and as you can see, the date is probably a little bit squished. So what we can do is look to just push our date right to the edge of the margin to give us a little bit more space. And again, I may decide that it's still looking a little bit dense, and I may just up to stretch my left and right margin just a little bit more, because we do have the space to do that. Just looking to get in between these pins, and sometimes it takes a second. There we go. And yeah, maybe there. Okay. And that will give me a little bit more space just to push this out, get a little bit of separation. So I'm quite happy with how my subheader looks. As I say, there are no hard and fast rules here. I've led with the institution name. I went for the qualification name next and then the date. You could go with the qualification name first and then the business management, or you could even go with the date and have the date on the left hand side. It is up to you, but whatever you do with your subheaders and however you choose to present that information, please make sure that you keep it very, very consistent throughout your document. So I'm going to give some information underneath this, so let's have a little space. And then what I'm going to start with is maybe a grade average, and I'm going to include some of the modules that I have studied on this degree so far. Let's go ahead and pop that in there, and at the moment it's looking quite listy. What we want to do is utilize the space, the white space, evenly. So what I might do first is just break this up a little bit, and I might just take these three. I can do a couple of things. So I could highlight all of these, and I could consider using columns. So if I go to layout, you'll see this button, and it'll allow me to split those across two, like so. I can then take this, modules include. If I come back, I'll underline that just to break it up a little bit. And similarly, then I've got my grade average. So things are looking nice and tidy so far. What we're not going to do is expand on any of that. We're not going to discuss what we've learned or skills that we've developed within these modules. We're not going to reflect on, our journey so far. We're treating this almost like a transcript. And if you look at how I have named the modules, we're making sure that we're capitalizing all the words in each module name that need to be capitalized. They are names, so remember to check your punctuation and your spelling. Beneath that, let's focus on A levels. And if you didn't do A levels before, it might be that you're putting in the GALCAL or a university entrance exam, or a baccalaureate or something like that. But we're working backwards in time, so whatever you did before coming to uni, that's what we're going to put in next. So I'm just going to Control V. And then what we're going to do is try to set this information up so it's consistent with what's above. And what I also want to show now is another approach to structuring your information horizontally across the document. So up here, we started with columns. So let's maybe just not use columns, and then we'll try the different way. So I'll come to layout, I'll put this into one. And then what I'm going to do is take Sustainable Operations Management. I'm going to Control C. I'm going to copy that information. I'm going to come up to Marketing, and then I'm going to Control V. So it goes in right beside. From there, I'm going to get my cursor so it's right in front of the S, and I'm going to use the Tab key to push this information across the page in increments, and the Tab key can be found directly above the caps lock. It is your best friend when it comes to structuring your information on a CV, and use it where possible. A lot of people will use the space bar to move things across the page horizontally, but what you will find is then you'll struggle to get perfect alignment as you repeat that process underneath. The tab key avoids that. So let's put that to the test right now. So I'm going to move this stuff out. I think that's far enough. I'm then going to delete Sustainable Operations Management. I'm going to repeat the process with International Business. Add that out, and hopefully we'll start to see that perfect alignment coming to the fore. I'll take that out from there, and I'll take Behavior and Organizations, and then we'll do the same one last time. And we've got that perfect alignment. So you've got choices there. I prefer using the tab key approach. I think that it gives you more control to make fine edits rather than using things like columns and stuff like that. But it is up to you. So now I'm going to come back to the A-level experience. We'll pull that up just a little bit. We've got this information, Belfast College, and we've got dates. We've also got A-levels. But we may have also done something else at Belfast College, such as our GCSE. So we've got a couple of different qualifications, if you want to call it that we need to talk about here. So we need to modify our subheader ever so slightly. And the way that we can do this is we'll take our dates, we'll put them up here, we'll take them out of here. And then I'm going to make all of this bold because that's what's happening above. And then I'm going to push, using the tab key, I'm going to push my date right to the edge of the right hand margin. I'll go until I've gone too far, and then once I've gone too far, I'm going to use the back key to bring it right to the edge of my right hand margin. And the idea is that as we put all of our dates in, it will give us a nice clean line the whole way down the right hand side of the page, just like we've got on the left hand side of the page. So it's just about preserving the frame. So we've got our A-levels, and again it's still looking maybe not like the best use of space, so let's look at how we can change this. So I'm going to take Business Studies, I am going to then come up to A-levels, and I'm going to tab right out until I'm aligned with my modules on the right hand side in my degree, and I'm going to Control V, and I'm going to do the same then up here with Art, and then I'll do the same with French. So I've got an A in Business Studies, an A in Art, and a B in French. I'm then going to do exactly the same with the grades. I'm going to use the tab key. I'm going to push them right out. And again, now what we're starting to get is really nice alignment between the modules above, the modules below, a nice clean line starting to emerge down the middle of the page, as well as on the left hand side and the right hand side of the page. So all of this is designed to make this super accessible, really easy to read at a glance for potential employers. Now let me just, we had a little bit of an issue with our top margin, our left and our right margin. I've corrected that, and we've got our GCSEs now, and we can repeat a very similar setup here. So instead of putting that information about the subjects we studied underneath, I'll put it alongside. I'm going to come to here and I'm going to Control V. And then I'm going to come down here where it says Maths, and I'm going to use my tab key again. Now it will start to move things around, but what I can do is I can come back up to where it says 10. If I use my backspace key, everything starts to pull together eventually. So that bit takes a little bit of wiggling, but once you've got it, again, you're preserving that nice clean structure. And if you want to, you could underline and underline. You could make those bold if you want. It's not necessary, those things are up to you. But notice how our formatting is really coming together, and our CV looks super slick, super polished so far, but we're not using any fancy templates, we're not using any advanced, functions or any sort of, tricky stuff on the ribbon or in any of these other tabs up above. Everything is just using the tab key and the space key and making sure that our text is set to no spacing so that we can make decisions about how we choose to, weight the font or, decide on the level of spacing between sections, etc. So far we haven't done anything with the spacing between sections, but this is something that you could also standardize, especially if you're running tight on space. So for example, here I might decide I'm going to pull that down to 10. And then I'll repeat that here and pull that down to 10. And then here, 10. So I can make sure that all of my gaps are 10. Even though my text is still 12, by just slightly squeezing the white space, we carve out more room for ourselves so that we can, you know, add that little bit extra in, or, you know, say a little bit more about a specific experience. So we'll go over 10s the whole way through. Okay, now let's go 10. Okay, so we've got our education section set. We don't need to give any more detail in this, and the rule of thumb is the further back in time you go, the less detail you need to give. Employer is most interested in your degree education. So the next section we're going to look at is an employment section. So again, in keeping with our main header for education, we're going to set employment up in exactly the same way. So we're going to again just see what's going on there. Just pull that back. Don't like what happened there. We'll get this to where it needs to be. Let's just go caps employment, and again then I'll come underneath, but what I will do here is size 14, bold, underline. And then just like we've done for our subheaders in education, that's how we're going to set up our subheaders for our employment. Consistency is the name of the game. So we've started with the institution name in education, and then we went on to the qualification name and then the date. In employment, we're going with the employer's name, then the job title, and then our period of employment. And again, we'll set that up in exactly the same way so we get a lot of consistency. And again, I'm just going to push my dates right across to the right. Once I've gone too far, I'll use my backspace key to get that nice and tight to the right hand side. I also noticed here there is no space, so I'm going to put that in and put it back. And that gives us our nice subheader. So then I'll come to here. We will then put in our detail. So we're going to use bullet points for this section. I've already set up the detail. And again, we want to make sure that we're striking a balance between adding detail and keeping things accessible. Bullet points can help with that. So let's just put them in. And again, we want to maximize the space. So I'm going to come up to my ribbon. You've got the two pins, pin number 1, pin number 2, and then you've got the little box underneath. I want to move both of the pins at the same time. So I'm going to click on the box. And then that will allow me to move the text and the bullet points together, and I'm just going to align them right underneath the beginning of my subheader and my header and so on. So when we look at that content, you can see that we are being really specific about what we did in that row, how we did it. We're using strong verbs to indicate the skills that we've developed, provided front of house reception duties, catalogue legal documentation, supported the wider team, reported directly to partners, and that allows us to really sort of underpin the communication skills, the organizational skills, the attention to detail that we're attempting to demonstrate here. Also, where possible, we're attempting to quantify our work and our impact, and you can see here that we're responsible for dealing with over 2,000 over 2,000 client records. So sounds like a complicated and demanding task. So our employment section is pretty much complete. If you had more than one employment experience, obviously you would just need to come underneath and then put a new subheader in and repeat that process. We're going to move on to an extracurricular activities section, and in here what we're going to talk about is our virtual internship experience with Sydney Romantics. We completed this via the Forage Virtual Internship Experience platform, and you can access that on the QBS placement portal. It's got over 100 different virtual internship experiences that are free for you to try, and what you'll be interested to know is that they are co-created with multinational employers, and they're designed to give you a real insight into what a specific job might be like at a specific organization. They look fantastic on a CV, and employers really respond positively to them, especially if you're applying to the employer that you completed a virtual internship experience with. So on the placement portal for that. So we can see we've got our main header, extracurricular activities. Let's just get that set up correctly. So bold 14, all caps, underlined, and then we've got our subheader here with Sydney Romantics. So again, let's just look at how we're going to structure this. Because this is a virtual internship experience and it's not a period of actual work experience, it's not an actual physical internship, we need to make it clear that it was completed via Forage. So we've got this little bit in there, completed via Forage open access platform, and if you wanted to, you could even include a little hyperlink in there so that the employer can go and see what Forage is all about themselves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set up this subheader so that it works for our structure. So I'm going to go ahead and make that whole top line bold, because that's where the main emphasis is in our subheader, and I'm going to move our date that we completed this to the right. And again, we're going to do what we always do, tab until we've gone too far, and then we're going to use our space key for the fine tuning. Now, we have encountered a little issue here where this section is going to be separated from the main body text because there's just not enough room to get it in there. So what I might do at this point is I might look to create more space on the first page, but more than likely I'm probably going to shift all of this onto the second page, and to deal with this little bit of detail on the front or at the bottom of the first page, I may just come in here, for example, and just write personal profile, and then I will set this up. So we just go bold, let's go left alignment, underline, we'll go 14, and then we can pull this back down to 10. And above, we can maybe keep that at 14 just to keep that punchy. Still a little bit of space down there, so we could again look at just squeezing our margins again ever so slightly, but I think it looks okay, so I am going to leave it as it is for now. So moving on to the main body text for our extracurricular activity. Again, I've got this information and I am just going to copy paste. Before I do that, I may take this section, completed via Forage open access platform, I may put this in bold. I don't need to, it's not necessary, but I think it looks pretty tidy, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to put my detail in. I'm going to come up and I'm going to use my bullet point key again, which you can see just above this align section. Then we're in the bullet points, all under the paragraph ribbon. And then I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to grab this little box underneath the pins, and I'm just going to align these bullet points with the bullet points above. So we're really tripling down on consistency with our formatting, but as you can see, it's giving us a really nice, clean, accessible layout. And in here, let's pull this down to 10 because that's what we've done everywhere else. And again, when we look at the tasks associated with this position, we're following exactly the same principles that we followed with our employment experience. We're starting these bullet points with verbs. We're opening up not just on what we did, but how we did it, and we're describing the different stages in the process. We're highlighting the skills that we've developed along the way, and we're also trying to pinpoint the impact of our actions. What do we actually deliver? So a basketball themed launch concept with promotional materials, including a flyer and creative outreach. We're also summarizing by using the noun form of the skills that we've developed along the way. Content creation, campaign planning, attention to detail, and communication. Again, when you're choosing which skills you want evidence in your experiences, be guided by the job advertisement. The most critical thing is to evidence the skills that the employer needs the ideal candidate to possess. So that sort of takes care of our extracurricular activities section. I think at this point I'd like just to include a little skills profile, just something at a glance to show the employer what kind of practical and digital skills we possess. So I'm going to go ahead and put one in. And I've designed this one earlier. You don't have to have everything on here. You may have these things and more. Everybody is different. But what I will say is you don't need to be an expert in order to list something in your skills profile. So we've started here. We've got our main header set up. We're going to follow our spacing conventions as we do. Just want to make sure that, okay. And then I think this kind of doesn't, it's fine, but I think that it could probably be a little bit more accessible and a wee bit more efficient in terms of its use of space. And let's just start by maybe using our tabbed approach to separate the actual application from our level of ability. So maybe we go, and what I might look to do is again use my information on the first page as a reference. The second column in my education starts from the 7.5 mark in the top margin, so maybe I'm going to try and do exactly the same here, which looks like that's correct. Competent is a pretty good word to describe most people's ability with things like Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint, and it's absolutely plenty for any employer. And unless you are applying for a role that requires advanced VBA and things like that. And again, if you do happen to have any advanced skills in any of those software packages, please feel free to make that clear to the employer, especially if, for example, you're applying for a role in finance. VBA is going to be something that employers are super happy to see. It's in demand, and that's something that can help you to stand out. For my purposes, I'm just listing some different skills here. So we've got Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and then I've separated Outlook and Teams, but I do want to highlight that I can use those because we use them every day in the professional environment. Then we've got some more specialized and advanced software. SPSS, the statistical software package from IBM, that I may have used in my data and statistics module, for example, in my business management degree. I've got Tableau, which is a data visualization tool, Adobe Photoshop, Canva, and then some language skills. And again, I want to reiterate, you don't need to have lots of different skills at this point. Anything you acquire is a bonus, but I just want to give you guys an idea of some of the things that you might include in a skills profile. With the French, we're trying to quantify our level. We went for CEFR B1, that's the Common European Framework for Languages, and B1 is a score that would put you around an intermediate level for your language. So we've got that information in there now. What I also would like to do is maybe repeat my usage of italics here, just again to further break up this information. And now we've got a skills profile that looks pretty tidy. Now, what you might notice is that I haven't sort of mentioned things like communication or problem solving, attention to detail, teamwork, and so on and so forth. I think it's better to evidence those, social skills, those cognitive skills within the context of the experiences that you've already mentioned. Just they'll be more impactful there, they'll have more credibility. Indeed, even with the other elements of your skills profile, yes, you can put them here in this section that, gives us an at a glance view, but if you can also reference your usage of those within the context of your experiences, it'll really enhance your credibility and it'll, make your CV more impactful. So we've got our skills profile ready to go. We're nearly there for this CV. Your CV may be longer, it might be shorter, but if you apply these principles to structure and format, no matter what, you'll have a nice looking CV. So I'm now going to put in my next section, which is just another awards and achievements section. So again, we're setting up that main header, and then underneath, we're just treating this very similarly to the way we've treated our education stuff. So we don't need to go into this in detail. Now, if you wanted to give me some bullet points underneath one of your achievements because the context was particularly compelling, for example, that is absolutely fine. Just make sure that you're linking the skills the employer has asked you to demonstrate when you're adding that context in. So we've got this nice section. Let's just be careful with our spacing. And then we're on to the last section of this particular CV, which is the interest section. And again, here we might just break from some of the conventions that we've established in the rest of the CV. We're not going to use bullet points here, and we're going to write in the first person perspective. I don't know if you've noticed at this point, but we haven't referred to ourselves anywhere else in this CV. We haven't said I or me. We are up until this point writing in the active implied voice, sometimes referred to as the telegraphic style. It just helps us to stay concise, and it really keeps the focus on what we're doing and the skills we're demonstrating rather than what we're experiencing from an emotional point of view, how we're feeling or what we're learning. we want to make sure that the CV feels clean and clinical. However, in the interest section, we're going to break from that, and we're going to try and just inject a little bit more personality in. So we're writing in that first person perspective. You can see here we are highlighting our love of tennis. We are giving it a little bit of context, and we're linking the achievements, namely that we win the Young Player of the Year award at our local club. We then highlight some of the transferable skills that we have acquired through playing tennis, and these are skills that will be beneficial in the workplace. Here we're talking about teamwork ability and leadership ability. And we're also highlighting that we coach younger members of the club as part of this. Now, you could, even if you wanted to, have a volunteer experience section in your CV, and you could really detail that experience, the process of coaching the younger members. You could talk about the impact that you've had in terms of success rates, etc. And again, you could link to transferable skills. We haven't done that this time, but we have mentioned it in there, and it just allows the employer to see a different side of us. So our CV at this point is almost finished. One last thing we need to put in, just to let employers know that it is finished, is our footer. And the footer for CVs is references available on request. And again, we're going to treat that like every other header. When we're dealing with references on a CV, we don't need to include the referee details. It'll just take up space. If you're offered a position, then the employer will ask you for referee details at that point, and that is when you'll provide them. Simply putting references available on request at the end of your CV is enough. So let's zoom out a little bit and see what our CV looks like in terms of spacing. Maybe I won't use that view, I'll come back to my print view. But I think that the CV looks clean and tidy. At this point, everything is in its place, and if I need to make adjustments to this, which I almost certainly will, as I update my experiences, as I try to refine this CV so that it's indicative of skills required for different roles, then I am going to be able to do that very easily. So what I'll do now is I'll save this CV as a Word document, which means I can edit it later, but I will also save a PDF version of this. If I'm satisfied that this is the final version of my CV for the role I'm applying for, I'll convert it to PDF, and then I will submit the PDF, and that will take care of everything. So hopefully you have found this little tutorial useful. As you can see, you don't need a lot of fancy tools to create something impressive in Microsoft Word. Just having awareness of that tab key, understanding how to use the margins and the little tools, the little pointers on the margins will get you everywhere you need to be. So yeah, the QBS Careers and Work Placement Team CV template is set up in a similar style as this, but as I say, it doesn't have to look exactly like this. The main thing is that you're being consistent in your design principles, if you want to call them that, and that you're paying close attention to the small details. Everything else will work out. So thanks very much for joining me today. Hopefully you found this interesting. Remember to check the QBS placement portal for vacancies and for more information about creating CVs, cover letters, interview preparation and more.